we organized a special section this year at Les Arcs, which is called Move Mountains, and the idea is that we select films that we think that are helping to make things change also. So not only denouncing, which is of course part of this film, but also, and that can be also will be an interesting part of the discussion, how films can have direct effects on how we behave, on policies, etc. And I think it's documentaries on investigation are a lot about that. But maybe my first question would be, it's rare to have 3 directors on the film, and I think you are also involved as producer. How you start working on this project? And I think it was quite a few years ago.
Monica wanted to make a film about Austrian involvement in Romania to cut the Romanian forest.
Okay.
The wood industry. And Michaela, she was working with me on a completely different film on Sex and the Pill. And
Okay.
she made a film about Alexander von Bismarck.
Yeah, so I just said actually
another adventure, yeah. And so put the 2 projects together and started to work.
I started with, to do a television project with Alexander von Bismarck and EIA. That was about the similar work, but in different countries. We were, for example, filming in Madagascar, also in China, but China, I guess, is always involved if illegal logging is involved, or very often at least. So that was also a finished film, but I always thought that the subject is so much bigger than just for a small television audience in, the German-speaking world. So that's why I always felt, that that's actually a subject for a big screen.
Okay.
And I came to Ebba because I wanted to do a film about forests. Because it was very painful for me to see Romanian forests being cut down to a too high speed, let's say. So I came, with half of the brain was like an activist brain that we have to do something, and half of the brain was like a filmmaker brain that maybe with my knowledge and with my métier, I'm able to do something for the forest. So my first intention was like, I don't know, I have to do something with my job for the cause of the forest.
And you were aware, and it was known at the time you started, that there was all this illegal logging, or you discovered far more than what you expected?
We were aware. I was aware. The media in Romania was covering the subject in short reportages, well documented. So all the Romanians were aware of this, but on a high level, on the political level, or on the legislation level, or on the justice level, very few things were being done.
It's interesting because we are screening in the festival another film on Romania, which is Collective, and which deals a lot also with the collective system and politics. And do you think it's now improving or changing, or because when you wanted to do this film, it was, and that's an interesting aspect, not only to show the situation, but to make things change. And I guess that will be also a question for Alexander. But when you get involved on such a project as you are also an activist, the idea is not only a documentary to show a situation, but that you can make things change, no?
From my point of view, I think things are changing. And what I used to say, because, now there is pressure from the public, from the people. There is a pressure from the society. So things are improving, I would say, somehow. And even if another government, maybe more corrupt than the previous one, it's coming, and they cannot erase everything that all the success that the previous government and the activists and society did. So it's always small victories are being there, being in, they are stuck somehow in the system. So we talk only about small victories that, you know, are changing bits by bits. And I'm curious about Alexander's perspective now that he was in Romania for the first time in 2012. So I'm curious how he sees the changes, or I don't know what is his perspective on the wood trade and cutting of trees in Romania, and how the system is dealing with that.
Thanks, Monica. Well, first of all, the reason we went in is because of you in the end, you know. I mean, we were trying to change the system around the world of how wood was governed, really, how the forest is governed, which is such a tricky problem all over the world. But in this moment with working with Michaela and being introduced to you, we really saw the special role that Romania had in that equation, because it was grappling with a lot of the same problems that maybe we more typically think about in the big tropical forests, because they are always in the news, in the Amazon or in the Congo Basin. The challenges of corruption that are associated with a forest sector, which is kind of a systemic problem. And yet you had in Romania an energy in the people, an organic energy to tackle that problem that was super interesting for us, and I think and a great opportunity to move things forward, and even to show the rest of the world a bit of what's possible. But you asked me what actually happened, you know, how we are in Romania, and your view is more important than mine. My view is that it's about halfway there in terms of the reforms that were pushed. I think it is a big deal what happened, because it really shows what's possible, and it shows the solution. It's within grasp, and the reforms that happen, which have made the Romanian forest sector arguably the most transparent, in some key ways, the most transparent forest sector now in the world, meaning you can watch the trucks move, that kind of thing. When you get that kind of success, that kind of reform, you have to, as you were saying, Monica, in these cycles, you know, of progress and falling backwards, you have to celebrate it, and you have to hold on to it. You have to cling on to it and not get discouraged because it's not everything, because it didn't change everything, and not everything is perfect. Because especially when it's transparency, it's hopefully kind of like a ratchet, you know, that meaning that you get to here and you don't go back, you hold on, and then you get to there and you get to there. And there is a big piece missing in Romania, which is that you still have, and it's getting into the details, but you still have these depots that are hiding the origin of a big chunk of the wood, even though a big other part of the sector is transparent. And the interests, obviously, behind the big money are holding on to that loophole. Other reforms are needed as well, but that's an example of where it's not all the way there, and we have to keep fighting. But I would summarize it with saying that the energy of the people in Romania to fight corruption was something I have not seen on the ground. The response to the films we released, not this film, but the snippets of the undercover film that we released in the moment to try to push for reform, the fact that there were demonstrations on the ground. I have never had that experience in doing this work now for 15 years around the world.
Another question was how you managed to collaborate with 3 directors, 3 countries, and you, Alexander. How was the idea of working all together? And the project is really international too. We travel a lot. Of course, it starts in Romania, but then we understand should I go first? The company is the core of it, but who they are working with, etc. So I was interested how you built the project as very international as it is.
We mainly followed the work of EAA and Alexander. So, I mean, Romania was kind of set, but the other countries, you know, we wanted to actually from the beginning, the idea was that we would have like kind of a case which is complete, which is finishing one, you know, where we see most of it, which of course Romania is not finished in a way, but there's, you know, like a long process, and then a part which is just beginning, which that would be Peru. So that was clear from the beginning that we want to have, you know, we want to build up really the work, not just because EIA is working like that, but because, you know, it's building up the global market, and that's, you know, where the wood, the illegal wood is also going around. So that was the one thing, and then, you know, we working with 3 directors that came together also because Monica and me at that time, we did have small children, and, you know, if Sasha, you know, the EIA and Sasha, if they decide they go somewhere, you have to be very fast. You can't like, I mean, if you can, so, you know, so you can't like wait, you already say, oh, like, let's go in half a year or 3 months or so, you have to react fast. So, you know, we said, you know, with 3 of us, we will always have somebody who can go.
A question, you talk a lot about politics and how politics can change, and also all the people can make things change, but also there is this big company which is a lot in the film, the Austrian company. And do you think that after those documentaries and all this case, they will also change the way they're working, or you think, well, everything is about money and that's it?
I think that, for example, in Romania, they are behaving much better than before. In a way, in the Ukraine, where other Austrian companies are quite illegal, do more illegal stuff than they. So that's one thing. And on the other hand, what they are also doing is like they are also greenwashing. They are employing like the CEO of the Austrian Roof Organization for the forests as sustainability manager. So maybe partly in good faith, but for example, what they are also trying, the sustainability manager, is that they are trying to keep the public television from broadcasting the film.
No, another thing which is quite specific to Romania is that there are, I was in a festival this summer, and I met someone who you might know, which is Francis Allais, working a lot on forest topics, and he explained he's promoting a virgin primary forest, and he said the only remaining virgin primary forests are actually in Romania. There are nearly no other in the world, so I was impressed, and I guess it's part of also, well, maybe why the Romanians are so attached to their forest. I don't know. Maybe it will be a question for Monica.
We can say that we are still proud with some of the very generous forests left from this point of view. That, of course, because of poor and loose legislation, it's being under threat. There are NGOs who are actively involved in protecting as much as possible just the natural parks. So they are focusing a lot on the natural park. But yeah, we do have, compared with other countries in Europe or close to us, we have a very rich ecosystem.
Alexander, your organization is involved on investigation in different fields, or the wood is a special subject you were already involved and aware of?
We have now for about 15 years really exposed the problem of illegal logging around the world and how it is our own fault. You know, it's the consumption in Europe and the United States and the other richest countries of the world that is causing the corruption locally, you know, and really what we are doing as an organization is to trying to show the truth of that and to not allow this kind of excuse you often get a view maybe in Europe or the United States that, you know, these corrupt countries need to get their act together. Well, we need to get our act together. We're the ones buying the stolen goods, which is throwing the money into a system that is impossible to resist. It would certainly be impossible to resist for you or me if we were in that situation, you know. And so we are fighting that fight around the world. Our investigations, as the film showed a bit, are continuing in the Amazon, in the Congo Basin, in Southeast Asia. And what is really exciting about the film's project is that it shows the origin of one of the big exciting solutions for the whole fight, which is these new mechanisms for transparency to bring light into the forest, which, you know, any solution, the solution you mentioned of maybe creating a new primary forest, or any of these cool ideas for how we can make our forest healthy again, totally depend on knowing what's happening. You know, you can have a great idea, but the truth is right now that the forests too much are a black box of corruption and violence and crime. And that's not a place where you can you know, apply subtle, smart solutions. You know, we have to get light into the forest, and it is this project that has developed, I think, a vision for how that can tangibly happen.
Can we be optimistic that, well, through those actions and through the evolution of also mentalities, things will improve a bit in the future, and not only locally when you have such a scandal? Or do we need scandals to have those changes?
I think we do need scandals, and that's part of our work, is to bring the truth forward and to create political will. But when you have that political will, you have to put it to use to create really tangible change that sticks around. And I think this film shows an effort to do that. I think we should absolutely be optimistic. Look, we're going to lose more forests. You know, we have to be realistic too. It is a tough, complicated world out there of global trade that is demanding these resources. And we have to fight to protect them, to help local people to protect them. That is the real fight. And we as the consumers need to connect. The optimism comes from connecting to local people around the world, indigenous people, the communities you saw in Romania that are getting their land back after communism and World War II. These stories are playing out all around the world in the Amazon. And if we create a global community to support local effective governance and protection of those resources that can stand up to the big demand of global trade, we should absolutely be optimistic that we can save a core, you know, of the best forests for the future, and not have them be a story that we have to tell our kids about, or, you know, I saw an art piece where somebody put a forest on display in a soccer stadium a little while ago, you know, and that really made me afraid of the future, where the only place where we can still see a real forest is as an art installation somewhere. Mm-hmm. So we should be optimistic that we can keep that from happening.
Yeah, but I also think that the narrative is already changing, and that's usually, you know, one first step. So at Fridays for Future, for example, they are also a global network that is fighting, you know, also for the same causes. So it, you know, different things come together, and maybe also the COVID situation makes people tick a bit slower on the one hand, and maybe they also went in, at least in the Western world, you know, they went more into the wood because they could not go anywhere else. So also this, like, is just a little stone to the whole picture.
Mm-hmm. And I think also one reason why we were also interested, you know, to specifically do a film, not just in general about NGOs who work against illegal logging, but to, you know, do one with Alexander Von Bismarck and EIA, because on the one hand, you know, they really do the research and do the investigation and, you get the evidence, but then they also, they just don't create a scandal, because that's important. But then you have to use that, for political change specifically. And that was the one thing that from the beginning always interested me. And I think that's, those are the two pieces who have to go together. And I think also that Ebba is right, right now, I mean, when we started the film, there was no Friday for Futures anywhere on the screen. There were local groups. So maybe it's the right moment to create even more change.
Thank you very much. It's I think a very important film, and very, very, very interesting, and a very impressive investigation, a long investigation. Well, hopefully it would be better to meet in Les Arcs and skiing, but it was really nice. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
And I wish you
thanks very much.
The best for the film and for your future projects.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and all the best for the festival.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.